Everyone, in this video, we're going to be talking about how to listen to others. There is a 3-step process, which I call the ABCs of listening. And then the latter half of the video is going to be talking about some tips and some guidelines for you. So without further ado, let's jump in. Part A of listening is, what are they thinking? As someone is sharing with you, you want to be asking, what exactly are they thinking in their logical part of their brain? What exactly are their thoughts saying? What are they confused about? What are they thinking? Part B of listening is, what are they emoting or feeling as they are communicating to you? Are they angry? Are they sad? Are they mad? Are they nervous? Are they tired? Are they fatigued? Are they depressed? What emotion is this conversation communicating as they are talking? Because an individual is both giving you their thoughts and their emotions as they are communicating. Part C is to restate. Restate what they are thinking, what emotions you heard, and then making sure you got it correctly. You might say something like, I heard you say this, and this is the emotion that I felt from you. Did I get that right? So I'd like to give you 2 personal examples, one from home and one from work. One of the kids came up to me and said, hey, Daddy, so-and-so took that from me. And in that moment, I practiced the art of listening. If I hadn't practiced the art of listening, I would have problem solved. And I would not have given them space to feel their emotions and to understand the situation. Because particularly for kids, sometimes you need to listen to them, but it's the same for adults. So in that moment, what I said to my kid was, so-and-so took the toy from you, and it sounds like that's making you sad. Is that right? And that was listening. In that process, by asking them, is that right? I'm giving them an opportunity to clarify their own thoughts and their own emotions. Don't get me wrong, it does take some time and practice to learn how to quickly synthesize what they're thinking and what they're feeling, and then to restate that to them. But as you get better at it, it gets a lot easier. And then all of a sudden, those difficult dynamics are diffused because you're giving some space for the other person to hear what's going on in their thoughts and in their heart. Another example that happened at work was someone said to me, there's going to be layoffs, did you hear? And in that moment, they were asking me a question, but I chose to pause and listen. And in that process, I basically said, I'm hearing you say there's going to be layoffs. It sounds like you're pretty nervous about that. Is that right? And all of a sudden, it had the other person pause and consider what I had said. As we continued in our dialogue and in our conversation, I kept asking a lot of clarifying questions, making sure that I understood what they were thinking and feeling. And the whole thing turned out to be some pretty big miscommunication, at least with respect to their division and their work performance. And some of those deeper emotional things going on with them had to do with their personal and family situation. The point is that practicing listening allowed me to figure out what really was going on, to understand their situation, and at the same time, pause me from reacting to whatever situation there is. Because at home, I just want to problem solve. And at work, I just become a nervous Nelly. So I've been practicing the art of listening for some time, and I've learned a few valuable lessons along the way. Here's a few tips as you start to begin to practice your ABCs of listening. Tip 1, ask clarifying questions. If you're confused about something, take a second to ask clarifying questions, such as, what do you mean by that? Or, can you help me understand the tie-in behind that emotion and what's going on in this situation? Ask some clarifying questions. Over time, you'll develop your favorite set. For me, one of my favorite clarifying questions is, what do you mean by that? It's pretty simple, but it allows a lot of people to open up and get a little bit deeper in terms of what they're feeling and saying. Tip number 2 is, don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes as you ask clarifying questions, it's going to be difficult and uncomfortable, and that's okay. Take a second, breathe, and wait for their response. This is probably one of the hardest things to learn because we're surrounded and bombarded by noise, and having a moment of silence is difficult and uncomfortable. But my challenge to you is to grow in your ability to deal with the silence. Tip number 3, don't problem solve yet. As you're going through the ABCs of listening, you're going to begin to want to problem solve because it might be an easy fix. What problem solving doesn't do is it doesn't give you an opportunity to really listen to them, and in that process, for them to hear what they themselves are saying. Tip 4, This is not for emergency situations. If something crazy is going on, if there is a life or death situation, you don't practice the ABCs of listening. What you do instead, you problem solve. For example, when I was called a few years ago letting me know that my son was having a seizure, in that moment, I didn't say, "So I'm hearing you say this and it sounds like you're pretty nervous. Is that right?" That would be ridiculous. Instead, what I did was saying, "Got it. I'm on my way home. Let me call the ambulance right now." And we literally problem solved right away because it was a serious situation. Tip number 5 is that this is going to be awkward, and that's okay. Embrace the awkwardness, because as you do anything new for the first time, it's going to be uncomfortable. Not only for you, but also for the other person, because you're regrooving a part of how you interact with them in relationships. Tip number 6 is practice with safe people. Listen, don't do this in really difficult relationships or in highly confrontational situations. Practice with safe people at the appropriate time. The next tip is let others know what you are doing. Don't just jump into it, but you can ease some of the awkwardness by letting them know, "Hey, I'm beginning to try to listen to others, so I'm going to begin practicing that with you if that's okay." And if they're safe people, they're likely going to say yes. The next tip is that mistakes are going to happen. You're going to get caught up in the heat of a moment. There's going to be a situation in which you are either going to practice the ABCs of listening and that wasn't the time, or the other situation is going to be you're going to be in a non-emergency situation but try to problem solve and deal with it like it is an emergency situation. And the final thing to remember is that practice makes progress. So go get practicing now. I have made a free Notion page for you guys to take a look at the ABCs of listening. You can print this out and use this as a reference guide for yourself, or keep it handy on your phone as you begin to practice listening. If you would like to see more similar content, please hit the subscribe button. The question I have for you is, who are you going to begin practice listening with? So go start listening, and I'll see you guys next time.